Hello, this is Ashee from Crafting with Ashee and welcome to this video. This is the gorgeous birthday card I have to share with you today. It's using the Wisteria die cuts and I just love how it turned out. I do love this Wisteria stamp set and die cuts from Stampin' Up and I've used them a number of times. So let me show you how I made this card. There's quite a lot of bit of die cutting to do, so I'm going to do that in a minute, but I'm going to show you the colours I've used. And you can see here all my pieces. I've got a lot of scraps that I've used. And the first one here that I've used is Pepper's House or Old Olive. You could use either. It really doesn't matter. And I'm going to cut my leaves out from that. And then I've got Gorgeous Grape and Highland Heather. And those are for my Wisteria. Then I've got some pieces here of basic white, and this measures 14.35 centimeters by 10. And I'm going to run it through this Fern 3D embossing folder, and this will just give some interest in the background, which is lovely. Now here is the die set, and as I said, this is the Wisteria dies, and you get a lovely load of dies here, some cut out the stamped image, and some we're going to use now to make our die cuts. Here are the two, and I'm going to use one here. This one for my lighter background of Highland Heather, and this little die cut is going to give a little added interest and different shading in Gorgeous Grape. Then I'm going to cut the leaves out of this piece here of Old Olive. As you can see, I've cut out all my pieces and I've got a ton of little die cuts here, more than maybe I would need, but I like to cut out more rather than less, and then I don't have to worry about going back to the die cutting machine. So we are going to try and start to assemble our die cuts, and I always use my silicone mat so that I don't get any glue on my craft mat if I can help it. And I'm just going to stick the Gorgeous Grape on top of the Highland Heather and just match them up, and I'm going to do that with a little bit of Tombow because that will give me just a little bit of wriggle room to get my stuff lined up perfectly, or as perfectly as possible for me. So you can see here I'm just making sure I know what orientation my bits should be in, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of Tombow on the back, not too much, just a few dots here, there and everywhere. I tend to sometimes it does tend to splodge out, sorry, losing my words here, but I try my best. And then I'm going to use my tweezers here just to layer one on top of the other, just like that. And then I'm going to continue on and do the other two wisteria flowers off camera, so you don't have to watch me doing the same thing 3 times over. Isn't that cute, our little wisteria flower? So now we're ready to do some stamping. Yay! And this is the stamp set. It's called Go To Greetings. It's been one of my favourites for the year. Such a wide variety of greetings in different fonts. It's great. I'm going to stamp this in Gorgeous Grape ink. So this is just a scrap of basic white cardstock. So let's ink it up, get it nice and inky, and then we're just gonna stamp it down, hold it, and there we go. Now we're ready to start inking our die cuts, and I'm going to use my sponge daubers, and I keep them in this lovely tin that I got on the internet, and we're going to sponge around the edges of our flowers and our leaves. So I'm going to use Gorgeous Grape to just sponge around the edge of my wisteria flower, as you can see here, and we're just going to try and catch the edges just to deepen them a little bit and just give some extra shadow and interest, and this just helps to make your little flower look less flat and a little bit more realistic. So just going around the edges, and you can even go catch a little bit in the center if you want, as you can see me doing here, and it just really does help to make your piece look much more realistic. So we're going to do that for all 3 flowers, and then we're also going to do a little bit of sponging here on the leaves, and I'm going to use the matching ink here in, I think this is Old Olive or it could be Pear Bazaars. They're very similar colours, so either will do. And you can see I'm not really being very careful where I sponge the ink. I just want to have that differentiation in colour so my die cut doesn't look so flat. Now I'm going to take my stamped image and I'm going to cut this out by eye, just into a small little panel, so that I can then mounted here on some gorgeous grape cardstock. So it'll help it to pop from the background, because the background's going to be white. So this just helps it pop a little bit so it doesn't get lost in the background. So I'm just going to stick this down on my scrap of gorgeous grape, and then I'm going to use my scissors just to trim around. And I find if you use a long bladed scissors, it really helps to trim so that you can try and get things as straight as possible. But in the end, if it's not totally straight, it's not the end of the world. But remember, this is meant to be handmade. This is not meant to be perfect. So it's not made in a factory, it's made lovingly by hand. So let's start to assemble our card. And I've got here a piece of basic white cardstock, and this measures the same as the outside. And all these measurements will be on the blog post on my website, and you can find the links to that in the description box below. The card base is gorgeous grape, and it's a standard A6 card base. So that's an A4 sheet cut in half and then folded in half. Now we're going to stick down our embossed piece of cardstock to the front. And I'm going to use Tombow for this just because there is so much texture on this piece that I don't feel the tape runner will actually work so well. So I use Tombow instead. So you're just going to put this on the front and try and get it centered as much as possible. I know it's difficult in the camera to see that texture from the embossing folder, but you'll see that in the photos on my blog. So now we're just going to start to arrange all of our flowers and leaves on the front of our card, and I do spend an awful amount of time faffing around with this, trying to get the layout just to the way I like it. So I'm not going to make you sit through the whole thing, but basically just take your leaves and arrange them on the top however much you like them, and then put them down with some little glue. I use Tombow, but I don't use Tombow all the way to the edge. That way I can tuck things as I want. And here you can see me putting down my flowers, my lovely wisteria flowers. And as you can see here, I just put a bit of glue down the centre, and then I can put them down as I wish. Just let them hanging beautiful flowers. So now it's time to stick our sentiment down, and I am going to pop this up with some dimensionals. And you can see here that I'm going to use the edges of my dimensionals. They're very good. They're just normal dimensionals, so don't throw away the edges of your dimensionals. They are wonderful. They're really great for things like this because they give you a nice straight edge. They're also really good for shaker pockets, so make sure you use your edges as a top tip for you. So I'm going to use a second piece of edge at the top, and then my piece is ready to be stuck down. So let's just take those backings off. And of course with an edge you don't have tons of backings either, you just have 2 strips. Always a bonus, because those backings just seem to get everywhere, however hard you try. So I think our card is looking good, don't you? So I'm just going to trim off any excess that's hanging over of the die cuts, that's hanging off the edge, and then we'll be ready for our finishing touches. If you are enjoying this video, I'd be grateful if you could give it a thumbs up so YouTube know, and do consider subscribing. It really helps my videos, or any content creators' videos, become more visible on YouTube. So I'd really appreciate that. Okay, so now we are going to do our finishing touches, and the first one is to use this lovely black and white gingham ribbon, and we're going to attempt to tie a bow. Now I don't know about you, but I hate tying bows. I love bows, but I'm not the best at tying bows. They don't always come out perfect and beautiful like everybody else's. They always seem to come out a little, how shall we say it, worse for wear. Are you great at tying bows? If you are, any help is much appreciated. So I'm going to stick down this little bow with some glue dots. And it's not that bad, I suppose. It does look cute, but then the ribbon is so cute, it's going to look cute whatever you do. So there we go, a little bow in the top left hand corner, and then I'm going to use some of these lovely pastel pearls just as a simple finishing touch, and I'm usually just going to use 3. I tend to do things in odd numbers, I feel they look better to the eye. So I'm just going to place those around here and there, and there are our finished cards. So as I said, if you want more information All the links and all the supplies are linked below in the description box. So thank you again, and until next time, enjoy being creative. Bye!